welcome to the Great Awakening Ministry. I am Minister and Yogini Joanne Lee. On this week's show, we have Sally Patton. Sally has worked for children with special needs for over 35 years. She conducted involved workshops on creating beloved community for children with special need labels in faith communities and on spiritual parenting a child with special needs. Sally expanded her spiritual awareness through a deep contemplative practice involving mystical texts and teachings about our truth as divine beings inhabiting physical bodies to embody compassionate consciousness. Sally now writes, consults, and conducts workshops on women's spiritual and transformational journeys to reclaim our divine feminine essence, to dissolve and heal lifetimes and decades of patriarchal conditioning. Her new book, Life is a Song of Love, is out now.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Sally, I just want to welcome you to the Great Awakening Show and thank you for being here, sharing your divine wisdom.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I am really happy to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant, Sally. And thank you for all of your work you're doing for the divine feminine at this really important time. So, Sally, what does this great awakening humanity is going through, what does it mean for women, for the divine feminine at this crucial time?
Well, I think I'd like to answer that question first by saying that the Great Awakening, some people call it the Great Turning. In my book, Life is a Song of Love, I call it the Great Tuning to Love. Yeah. And it's only possible because the divine feminine has returned. I like to say that the mother face of God is now back in her proper place, balancing the divine father. And with the return of the divine feminine, it provides the loving energy and compassion to help the distorted masculine to finally balance out, so that because the distorted masculine came about because we repressed all of the Holy Mother, the energy of the Holy Mother. And even though the Mother, Father, God cannot be separated and suppressed, we did so within separation consciousness.
Yes.
And so I think that the divine feminine is here to help the new consciousness into being. And what this means for women is it means that we need to do a lot of inner work to release the feelings of victimhood, to release the feelings of the abuse and trauma that we have gone through.
Woundedness, to release the woundedness through generation. It can be generational, you know?
Absolutely. It is definitely generational. And it's also in all of our other lives that we were women. We bring that into this lifetime, especially women, because everybody who's here now has chosen to be here now, to be part of this great awakening.
Yes.
And for women, we really need to be the leaders, because what happened when we decided eons ago to try to separate the mother from the face of God, we tried to suppress all of the divine feminine, intuitive, chaotic, imaginal, creative energy that is the divine feminine. And it was brutally suppressed. And we carry those wounds in our womb primarily, and men carry that wound in their hearts. So because patriarchy is a tool of separation consciousness.
Yes.
And in order for that to work, men had to be conditioned to not feel. They lost their hearts in the process. And in that process, because the mother face of God was gone, they actually lost their mother also. And then they tried to find it within women. The women were suppressed to the point of being the second sex, or raped or violated or murdered or whatever, burned at the stake. So it was a very distorted relationship that developed. And now, with the return of the divine feminine, we can do the inner work to love ourselves free, to be the strong women that we were always supposed to be, the wise woman, the shaman, the healer, all of those wonderful roles that we gave up. And in fact, we became the prime purveyors of patriarchy. That's what we
because we allowed it. Because I mean, in the beginning, we had the mother goddess religions. Yeah. We had the mother goddess religions, and the men used to revere the women. They used to make all them statues with the big bellies. They used to, because they was like, wow, women give birth. It's the most miraculous thing in the world. And it was the goddess, the worship of the goddess, and nature-based worshipping, you know, the sun and the moon and all of that, which was beautiful. And then and there were no wars at that time. They've found no, archaeologists found no warfare at all, you know, and no political groups or anything. It was just peace and love. And then came in, of course, it was one-sided. So then it came into the father god, the male god, you know, bringing in, you know, religion and politics and structures and masculine, you know, the patriarchal. But I believe in this new awakening that we're going through. It's not matriarchy or patriarchy. It's unity consciousness and love awareness. We're not higher than the male. We don't want to. We just want to. The earth has been flying on one wing, a masculine wing. And I believe we need to have two wings, you know, and we want to bring in that balance. It's because that's what we're here for, is to learn balance between, in this duality world, isn't it? Light, dark, masculine and feminine within us and within everything. We need that unity.
Yes, we do. And I really do believe that women have to lead the way, because the men have been conditioned so long not to feel.
Yes.
That even when they're on a spiritual journey, they still don't quite know how to do it.
That's right. And the ego, their ego, it's a big ego consciousness that they have to evolve out of, where women, you know, are so much more in touch with the divine. I feel in that way, because we give birth and we love in that unconditional way. We want peace. Yeah.
Yes, I definitely believe that. And also, what returns with women doing their work is that we begin to weave the basket of community again. We begin to weave together all of the energy that needs to come into Earth, so that we can be part of this great tuning to love, great tuning to compassion. I believe that we're ushering in the age of compassion.
Yes.
And the other thing that I have discovered, especially some of my spiritual brothers, is that men need to do this work on their own, just like the women are doing our work, coming together and finding ourselves again. But we were taught for so long that we should not be in community with other women. You know, that was pretty well suppressed. And now that we're developing this community with women again, it is freeing the men to develop their own community, because they need to do this with other men, because they've been so used to women feeding their egos.
Yes.
And relying on the feeling part of themselves, rather than going through it themselves and learning how to cry.
The love, which is what your book was all about. And, you know, it's really, when you do the work, we've all been a wounded feminine, haven't we, Sally? We've
Yeah.
all been wounded, yeah? And
Yeah.
once you realize that the woundedness comes from your past life and, you know, the ancestral wounds, but, you know, cause self-sabotage upon yourself and the things, you know, that is a point of doing the healing and the inner work. So tell us about the wounded feminine.
Well, one of the ways to maybe look at the wounded feminine that it also helps me is that we have these archetypes, these goddess archetypes, that can help us now. But what happened in separation and trying to suppress the feminine energy is we developed these fractured archetypes, and they became the archetypes that started to rule us. I guess that would be the way to say it. So we have like the whore temptress, we have the obedient woman, the wife, and then we have the rebel heretic, because the women who were the wise women that they had to suppress, they got called heretics when the patriarchal religions took over the world. And so we got stuck in those fractured archetypes, and it was very hard to get out of it. And I see this movement, divine movement that we're in now, was made possible by the women getting the vote, like here in the United States in 1920. That was when my mother was born. And then eventually we got the vote, and then in the 70s, it was the feminist movement, and then the Me Too movement. And all of those movements, while still within separation consciousness, were helping women gain strength again.
To speak their truth. Yeah.
Speak their truth. But we were still doing it within the confines of having to prove ourselves as equal to the men. And that doesn't work, because the way the men are ruling just doesn't work. And I say that within industry or anywhere, because we need to bring back the community. We need to bring back the love and the compassion. And that's what's going to change this world.
Yes.
And so now that we found our voices and our strength and all of those movements, we can now find it in our divine voice of, and I don't know about you, but for me, when I started on this journey and started welcoming the divine feminine back into my life, I honestly did not understand what the divine masculine was at all, because I was so wedded to this idea of the distorted masculine. I couldn't find anything that I thought was the masculine that was divine. And so I had to learn to balance that within myself first before I could do anything else. I had to really look at what the masculine meant to me.
Yes.
I mentioned in my book, it felt like a really scary dragon, you know, and that it was too scary. But eventually I realized that dragon in me was a very protective masculine energy that wanted to protect the divine energy within me, not erase it.
That's right. Beautiful.
And the masculine energy is what helps us, grounds us, the divine masculine. It grounds us. It provides clarity. It provides the light consciousness. And we need both the chaotic, creative, just untamable, wild energy of infinite possibilities, has to have some of that clarity and grounding in order for us to manifest.
Yes. We need the masculine and the feminine. It's together. You know, it's the union within ourselves. You know, it's so important to have that. All of that is beautiful. Protectiveness and all of that is so important for a woman to step up to that and have that, you know, because I really feel since the burning time, since the separation, the goddess that was, it was Mother Mary, and I call her the white goddess, the virginal goddess. We lost the dark goddess. We lost her. She was not allowed to be portrayed anywhere. So women repress their sexuality. They repress their standing up and speaking their truth. They repress so much of that. And because the only goddess was the white goddess. You've got to be virginal. You've got to be proper. You've got to be obedient to the man. That was what came out of that. But now it's like we're learning that to go within to the shadow, to go within and embrace that darkness, that dark goddess. She's the one, the Kali. We need that. We need that part of us just as much as we need the light. We need that. We need to balance both of them. And we need to take our pleasure, stand up for ourselves, speak our truth, because sex is the most sacred prayer that God has given us. Is it not?
And the thing that's happened with the distorted masculine energy is that we began to see sexuality as only in response to a man. I mean, that has screwed us up in a whole bunch of different directions.
That's right.
And you talk about Kali Ma, not only did she visit me about the anger, but also did Lilith come to me to help me write about divine sexuality. And honestly, when she showed up, I went, no way, I'm not going to write about sexuality, because it was I had it so screwed up.
Yeah.
And then I realized that if you define divine sexuality without it having to do anything with sexual intercourse or men, that is the creative life force of the universe. And we are very much a part of that creative life.
Sacred sexuality.
Yes.
It's spiritual, sexual, sensual. It's all the same thing. It's the same energy, but it's sacred. We've got to bring the sacredness back into sexuality between a man and a woman now.
Yes. And it also allows the non-binary and the trans and the gays, because they've been defined by their sexuality as against the heterosexual sexuality. And they are actually pioneers to help free us from that constriction, from thinking that it has to be either man or woman, but that it's all one. It's all within the oneness.
Yes. Oh, wow. That was so beautiful. And tell us, because this is really beautiful, your downloads, your wonderful visions that you have received. Tell us how during a meditation with the goddess, how do you say her name? The Kuan Yin.
Kuan Yin.
Yeah, the goddess of mercy, isn't she? The goddess of mercy.
Well, mercy and compassion.
Compassion,
yes.
Beautiful. And you, the wounded inner child, and you were gifted your incredible book, Life is a Song of Love. Tell us about that, and tell us about this book, because this is what the world needs, Sally.
So I hope so. Thank you. Yes, my spiritual journey began with channeled texts, such as A Course in Miracles, A Course of Love.
Beautiful.
I mean, I've read so many channeled texts, but those two were primarily started me on this journey. And A Course of Love brought me into the heart and actually returned the divine feminine to me. When I started with A Course of Miracles, it resonated with me, but it was written in the 70s. It's patriarchal language to explain stuff, and it really was hard for me to read, frankly. However, if I decided to just accept that it was the message and not how it was presented, using masculine terms. And then of course, I am getting to your question, believe it or not. Then the Course of Love came to me, and in it there was this whole passage on the way of Mary. And the way of Mary, it started I all of a sudden went, oh, the divine feminine is returning to me. And I can talk about that a little bit later, but what happened that opened the door again for me to start receiving messages from the Holy Mother, and primarily Mother Mary. So I then went next to a channel text called the Sophia Code, and in it there is this wonderful initiation with Kuan Yin. And it was in this initiation that I was so into just visioning what was happening and healing my inner child. I could feel my 6-year-old self battered and bruised already by all of the distorted masculine energy I'd been absorbing. And I was cradling my inner child and telling her that I was going to stop doing this. I was not going to batter her anymore, and that I really felt for the fact that she had been lost to me in a sense. So I was holding her very gently, and she got up and smiled and handed me a blank book with the title Life is a Song of Love. And when I came out of the vision, I was like, oh no, I am not going to write another book. I mean, I was instantly resistant for whatever reason. And I would say it took me about 2 to 3 years before I finally accepted the idea that, yes, I am supposed to write this book. And part of that acceptance came from this awareness. When I read about the way of Mary and I realized that I was to be an emissary of the divine feminine, I took a hike, and all of a sudden there were like 2 hawks spiraling overhead, telling me that there was a message coming. And all of a sudden I was just stopped dead in my tracks, and it felt like my entire life flashed before my eyes, with everything perfectly orchestrated to bring me to this point. Wow. Of being an emissary of the divine feminine. And that's when I finally went, okay, I can do this. I can write this book.
Amazing. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And how has the Holy Mother, I mean, well, we know this is the time of her returning, of all the goddesses in the past coming, the divine mothers, you know, all of them are here, you know, to raise us into this unity consciousness that we've been talking about, you know. But the Holy Mother, I mean, I pray to them and I meditate every day, the Great Mother, the Holy Mother, from which all things are born. Are they not? You know, and she's been returned to heal into wholeness the division between the feminine and the masculine that has been going on for thousands and thousands of years, hasn't it? This patriarchal, this is such a time. Tell us about the Holy Great Mother, the mother that has given birth to everything.
I find that thinking of the Holy Great Mother as the cosmic mother helps me a lot to realize it's much, she's everything, really. She is the womb of creation. And it always baffled me why, how we could think any differently that she was creation. I mean, the Father God is definitely necessary as a part of it, but it is the Holy Mother, the cosmic mother, that creates
and births.
And I, when I truly am in my heart, then I can feel the cosmic mother as being so much more than what's going on earth, but that we are cherished by her, and that everyone here is actually on this major, major grand adventure in a sense. It doesn't feel like an adventure often. It just feels dark and dense at times, but it is a grand adventure to create this earth, peopled by those of everyone who is divinely human, who is fully human and fully divine. That has never happened before.
Yes.
And right now, I know it's difficult to have faith that this is happening. I mean, it feels as if we're going backwards. We have these major violent conflicts in the Ukraine and Israel and the Gaza and Palestinians and in Afghanistan. It is just mind-blowing. And here in the United States, we've got separate states that are banning books, that are not allowing women to have their voice anymore. It just feels so dark and dense.
Yes.
It requires an immense amount of faith.
But I believe that we have to go through. This is like we're birthing a new earth. Yeah.
Yes.
And when that baby's head crowns, wow, that is the most painful part. And we're in the most painful part. It's the darkness. And also, I always say this, we can't, there's lots of darkness and evil in this world, and we can't build the new earth on this darkness and this evil. It has to come out. It has to be exposed. We have to. So this is going to take a while for this to come. The light is there. The end of the tunnel, the light, we can see that beautiful new earth, but we just have to turn away from that, do our own inner work to raise our light, earth peace through self peace. Yeah. And then be the example to give out, because, you know, this is what helps us to overcome that darkness. But it is going to be like that for a while, I believe, because it has to come out, doesn't it, Sally?
It does. And the thing of it is, it was all buried beneath the surface.
Yes.
So all of this divine energy pouring into Earth brought it up. And we have all of these people, both men and women, hanging on by their fingertips to the power over paradigm, because they're scared to death to lose their power.
That's right.
And then we have a whole group of people that are still asleep in separation consciousness.
That's right.
And so, yes, the light workers, all of us, the way showers, the love holders, we have to do our work so that we can only illuminate love and compassion. We never know how much our compassionate energy affects the rest of the world. It's much more powerful than the hatred and the violence. And also, we have to trust faith.
That's right. Because darkness has within it the seed of its own self-destruction.
Yes.
Because the light and love will always prevail. That will always prevail as long as we come from our hearts, from our true, authentic heart space, righteous, turn to the right, as Jesus would say, the right, you know, put your net to the right. But when we, as you said about the sacred, the Holy Mother, right? This is what we're talking about. Getting that Holy Mother energy, the goddess energy, us women, embodying that, right? Embodying that light. How can women wake up to the strength of the mother within and embrace the sacredness of all life on Mother Earth at this time? I know it's challenging, but this is why we need to do it.
Yes, it is. And I truly believe that that the Holy Mother, in whatever form we think about her, I mean, in any of the goddess forms. I mean, right now, the energy of Kali Ma is high for me, because we need that fierce love, and in order to embrace the fierce love that this world needs, we have to heal our anger. And I'm talking about destructive anger. I mean, there's some anger that that is part of that ferocious, the fierce love. But I'm talking about the destructive anger that keeps us feeling unworthy, that keeps us feeling that we're not enough. That the anger that can consume us about all of the abuse and the hatred that we have felt in this life and in other lives, and as you point out, ancestrally. I have had so much anger in me, and I'll get to the grief process later, but there's a lot more anger coming out of me right now that I thought I had already healed. And I think that it's the energy of the times, because it's really scary out there at the moment. And so we have to be very strong. And if we're still holding the energy of unworthiness, of doubt, of the critical voice in our head, of any judgments whatsoever of anybody else, then we're not going to be able to embody the fierce love. And so I believe that one of the phrases I use often in My Life is a Song of Love is from a phrase from the channel Teaching A Course of Love, is as within, so without. We cannot create a world that we want if we are still holding on to almost anything that doesn't serve us anymore. We have to learn to love ourselves, warts and all. And it's very hard to do. I mean, a lot of my spiritual friends and so forth, we do this, but it takes time. It's a process.
And I really, really feel that, like doing the inner work, the meditation, bringing the goddess light in, bringing, the divine love light energy is so important at this time. I do it in my Pioneer. I can, it's the light coming in. It's so beautiful. The photons of the goddess light. I never say God. I always say God, goddess. And it is just the one energy, isn't it? But it's just like, that is the armor of God, the light, the Merkaba, the light energy. You're building your light energy. You're letting go of the things that no longer serve so much of the darkness to allow more light. And that is your armor, because we need that to and that can, any negativity that comes, it sort of like just skims off then to your armor of light that repels that negativity of that 3D world.
You mentioned meditation. I have found it helpful to realize that the meditation that we were brought up on is his story. You isolate, you meditate, and then you ascend. But that's not helpful for women. I mean, women are about embodiment. Women are about learning from other women. Women can learn to meditate in many, many different ways. Sitting still and just meditating for me doesn't work very well. That's why I walk the labyrinth, because it's a walking meditation. I can sing, I can walk, I can talk and pray to the Holy Mother while I'm walking. And to let people know, the labyrinth in my book is my metaphor for the heroine's spiritual path. Because when you walk the labyrinth, and this is not a maze, by the way, the maze is deliberately created to get you lost. That's the patriarchal.
That's the matrix then, the matrix maze, as they would say,
Yeah. But the labyrinth is a universal path. It always takes you into your heart and into the center of the Holy Mother. And it's a circle. It's a circle that embraces. It's the oneness. And when you walk the labyrinth, you sometimes get close to the center, and then it folds and takes you out again. And you're constantly doing this until you finally end up into the center of the Holy Mother's heart. And you can metaphorically walk that labyrinth over and over and over again before you actually can stay in the center of the Holy Mother's heart.
That's beautiful.
And I find that if women are having difficulty meditating in the old traditional way, to do it differently. I mean, I meditate better in my bathtub, and I meditate better walking my labyrinth. Sometimes just hiking and being out in nature. I mean, it's the beauty that comes to you when you are feeling down a little bit. It's like I was reading a book on beauty, and I went outside, and there were these bluebirds that came through that landed right in front of me in a stream, right in front of the red cliffs. And it was so stunningly beautiful that it literally took me out of the moment of grief that I was in.
That's right.
That's meditation. I
mean,
it is. Yes. We begin to realize that our life is always walking our prayer, is always a form of meditation.
Yes. Yeah. Every prayer is a form of meditation, and seeing the beauty in everything, stopping and being in divine presence, being in that divine moment, is when you see that beauty instead of walking past everything. And Mother Nature, she really, really brought me into her. That's when I really started to awaken. She called me me back to her. That was the mother calling me back, and it was like when I was younger, I gave parts of my soul away to so many things. And it was like she helped me collect them parts of my soul to become whole again. The mother nature is my church.
Yes. And I really truly believe that almost all of my spiritual sisters feel that now. I mean, it is, we have, we've colonized animals, we've colonized the earth, we have stripped her bare, we have done all kinds of things to her, but there is still the beauty. And I also truly believe Mother Nature is taking back her body. I mean, she's taking it back for this great awakening. Exactly. And when we truly have transitioned into what many people are calling the fifth dimension or the age of Aquarius, we'll start seeing animals that are extinct coming back. The trees will grow again.
Yeah.
In places that have now stripped them.
And this was beautiful. I felt this one time, like animals that are aggressive will know love. They won't be aggressive anymore because the love of us, because we are the ones that emit this vibration. So this is why it's so much chaos, because of the chaos within us. We are a mirror. Yeah. Once we ascend and start, bringing and bringing out that love, the aggressive animals will feel that love and be more loving. Everything will change. It's just incredible, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. It really is. And it's these kinds of connections that you and I have made that keeps us from falling into really a deep grief or depression. We need each other. That is the Holy Mother. That is the divine feminine. That we need each other to connect, to hold us in this space that we can continue to illuminate our light until everybody is illuminating their
light.
Everybody, including all of these people right now that it feels as if they may never, and they may not. I mean, there's tons
some may not ascend this time, but they might have to come back, But
I just want to comment on that. I believe, and I really truly believe, is that many of these that will not be able to transcend now, they'll be taken to special schools to help them, because once the earth has ascended, they're not going to be allowed back in.
Yeah, that's right.
Until they themselves have awakened.
That's right. Turning the false light into true light. Yeah.
Yeah.
And could you just, before we get to the last bit about the grief, because I know that that's going to be beautiful, I just wanted to say about Jeshua and Mary Magdalene, because Mary Magdalene has been a big part of my life. My mother, my mother was pregnant with me. She never told anyone. As she walked up the aisle with my dad in the Mary Magdalene church. And it's just really, she's always been with me. When I was younger, I did things and I just love Mary Magdalene and Jesus. And, tell us a little bit about.
I can feel Mary Magdalene in you.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I can feel Mary Magdalene. I really can. Yeah. Yes. And Mary Magdalene, she's really speaking to women now. I mean, it's much stronger than when I started. I mean, I'm 73 years old. I started this quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of changes. And one of I mean, in many ways, Mother Mary never left. I mean, she was sort of confined and seen as sort of weak by the Catholic Church, but she never really left. And now we're seeing her stronger than ever. But Mary Magdalene, boy, she had to go through a lot for people to welcome her back. I mean, the Catholic Church really did a number on her. And
exactly. And they called her a prostitute, but she was Jesus's wife. She was his divine masculine. She was his divine feminine to his divine masculine. And the early ministry that they had was beautiful. Sacred sexuality, divine union, truths of wow.
And so, yes, I truly believe that she is so much stronger now. And I really feel her in a lot of women that I didn't originally feel her in, but she's showing up.
Wonderful.
And it's really beautiful. And all of the goddesses are showing up.
Yes.
As I said, Kali Ma came to me to help me with the healing and releasing the distorted, angry feelings that I was having, and then helping me understand what is fierce love.
Yeah,
I think she's so powerful. We need that power.
We do, especially at this time, to overcome this adversity and conflict and everything that's in the world. We need her. We need that strength.
And one of the other goddesses, because there's so much attention now on Egypt as the source.
Isis.
During Isis.
I love Isis.
Yes, and Isis is the source of the Magdalens. I mean, that's a line that comes all the way. Yeah.
The genes of Isis, Genesis. Yes. The genes of Isis, Genesis. Yes. Coming down, she was the beginning that seeded all of the goddesses, that seeded our world,
some people see Isis and Sekhmet and all of those, and of course Hathor came before Isis, and was her mentor, if you want to say. But it was Isis that brought the first golden age of Earth together in Egypt.
Yes.
And there's so much energy coming out of those who are remembering Egypt now.
Yeah.
It's very, very powerful.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. It's such an amazing time to be alive. But really. I want to go into, the grief that you had with your husband's passing. How, and the dark night of the soul, but the grief that you had, how you said that it cleared out everything that was unlike love.
So yeah, I would like to say that I'm still in the midst of the grief process. It's only been 6 months.
Oh,
died
bless
in
you.
April. And this is different than some of the other dark night of souls that I've had, because this was a push. You know, it was like, you have no choice. Bam, there you are. Your husband is dead. You are in this place of great sadness and grief. And I discovered, and so while I'm here, I am discovering that, yes, it magnifies, the grief process magnifies everything that you have not dissolved yet. That's everything that hasn't been serving you, that hasn't been dissolved yet. So stuff is coming up that I'm like, oh my God, I thought I had dissolved this, and it's there again. Like some of the anger that is coming up. And the whole experience, though, unlike other times of dark nights of a soul always come when a part of us needs to die and be made sacred. In a sense, you know, the word sacrifice for women got to mean giving up ourselves and our soul to a patriarchal authoritarian God. Once I owned sacrifice again, I realized it means to make sacred. Yes. And it means to make sacred everything that you have buried in your shadow, which is often carried by our inner child. And so right now, there's so much stuff coming up. And I've been around a while, and I've been so used to stuffing everything. You know, that's how you got through and survived. You just stuffed it all down. And I can't do that anymore. I can't do it at all anymore in grief. It's just an impossibility. And so it's all coming up. And sometimes I'm just so sad. I just cry and I cry, but the tears are healing. And we were taught that tears were weakness. No. But the tears are healing.
They are. It's expression. So, release.
Yes, it's release. And there are two things I'd like to mention about this process. For some reason, I kept getting messages about Jonah being swallowed by the whale. And I kept saying to the Holy Mother, I don't particularly like that story or that metaphor, because, you know, Jonah thought he was being punished. And I said, and I know you're not punishing me. I am in the midst of this grief process that has to move. And it's, as I said, clearing me out of everything that's not serving me. Mm-hmm. And I got this message. She said, you are in the cosmic whale that is floating on the cosmic ocean of my love. And so, yes, you are in the whale, you are in the darkness, but you are surrounded by my love. And I'm not going to let you drown. I'm not going to let you dissolve into your grief and darkness. You are surrounded. And within that whale, I am joined by all sorts of people who are doing the same thing.
Oh, so
and beautiful. There is so much love in this darkness. We didn't learn to fear the darkness, because the darkness was the predators that we couldn't walk down the street without maybe getting raped, that kind of thing. We got to fear the darkness, but the darkness is actually the womb of love.
Yes.
And so when I finally changed the story of Jonah in the whale, I realized that I was surrounded by love, that I am not going to drown when I get so sad sometimes. I'm not going to be angry forever. I am in this place of immense transformation. And I realized, Jonah gets spit out of the way onto strange land, and he's still not terribly happy about going to help these people that he abhorred. But he did learn, he did learn, but I'm not going to get spit out on strange land. I'm going to be gently, lovingly pushed out, like birthing, like I am like that is the transformation, another level of transformation.
Yes.
And it helps a lot. And as I said, I'm still in the midst of grief.
Yeah.
And one of the things you said earlier about you had the call in nature and putting the pieces back together. My daughter and I took this course at a place called Ghost Ranch, which is very near us. It's an absolutely stunningly beautiful place. I live in the high desert of northern New Mexico.
Wow.
And a very remote place. But Ghost Ranch isn't far from me, and I look at its red cliffs every morning when I wake up. And a shaman was doing a retreat called Healing Grief Through the Medicine Wheel. And that's healing the grief through the 4 elements, through earth, water, air, and fire. And one of the art projects she had us do, and there were 12 women doing this. I was actually delighted. My bow to my spiritual brothers, but I was delighted that it was all women for this part of my grief. And she had us bring a garden terracotta pot, right? Like a small one. And when I started my spiritual journey, God knows, when I was in my late 30s, I read a book called Everyday Sacred. And in the book, there was a man, potter, who was very well known. And one day he dropped a pot and he decided, instead of throwing it away, that he'd put it back together again. And he found the process so sacred and healing, like he was putting back together all of the pieces of himself and making a new pot. And she was going to do that with these pots. And I went, I've always wanted to do that. There's so much symbolism in putting, breaking a pot and putting the pieces back together, because I'm never going to be the woman I was who was married to Rick, because he's gone. I can't go back there, but I can put all of the pieces that felt like they shattered when he left, and I can put them back together in a gorgeous, gorgeous container, a new container, a new me.
Yes.
That loves the pieces that may have glue and stuff together. I can show you my pot.
I love that. That is so beautiful. Look.
And see, there's still a piece missing, but that's okay, because it lets the light in.
Yes.
And all of these, the cracks, I made them a beautiful blue so that you can see. And so everything, and then this, I found this on my property, and it's this, it reminds me of a snake, and the snake is about rebirth and transformation.
Mm.
So that
beautiful
was really powerful for me.
Wow.
Really powerful for me. And when I get to this place of thinking, oh, I'm never going to emerge from this, I can now look at my pot, because I know I'm putting the pieces back together.
Wow. That is such a beautiful, it's so beautiful, Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And anybody that's in the dark night of the soul is there because something inside of them is dying. It may not have been somebody they love. And it's always helpful to remember when you're in the dark night of the soul, and you mentioned it yourself, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. That if we can embrace what we're going through in the grief process, in the dark nights of the soul, whatever, if we can just embrace it instead of resisting it, then we'll be transformed. But when we resist, then that's when we get stuck. That's when it can turn into depression. It's embracing all of this that helps us move and grow through the dark nights of the soul.
Surrendering, isn't it? Surrendering as well. Surrendering into the...
I was just want to say that's another word I had to own again, because surrender for me was surrendering to a patriarchal God, and I didn't want to do that. It took a while. It just took me a while to go, oh, surrender doesn't have to be painful. You know, surrender is a beautiful thing. But it really took me a while, I'll have to say, in my journey before I could own that word again.
Yes. Wow. It's such an important time, such a beautiful, important time for women. And thank you for sharing that, because it was beautiful. It really touched me. Thank you, Sally, for that. That was beautiful.
Awesome. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking with you.
Yes, me too. Honestly, it's just been wonderful. It's been absolutely lovely. And where can our audience read your book, Life is a Song of Love? Because it's just fascinating.
Thank you. And the second part of the title is A Woman's Spiritual Journey of the Heart and Womb. And just one of the things I want to mention is that actually very important movement in the book, I call them movements, is the mother-daughter patriarchal wound.
Yes.
And that's my daughter, Sarah, has been so helpful in us healing that wound, because I don't care what kind of mother you are, that wound affects us mothering, because we learned to be the prime purveyors of patriarchy, and we passed it down to our daughters.
Passed it down. Unless you stop and do your work.
Unless you stop
and you take responsibility for that. It's all going to pass down to your daughters. I was doing lots of work with the Siberian shamans in London, and they were saying, you know, even things like the mother has had it and she hasn't worked on herself, then she will pass that down, and her daughters will go through the same thing. And it's so that's why it's so important. The most important thing we can do is to heal ourselves, you know, to become the healed healer. It's so important to release that darkness and then that unworthiness, you know, so that we don't pass that down to our next generation. It's such an important thing, isn't it?
It really is. And but until I started writing about it, there was not much being written about the mother-daughter patriarchal wound, but more and more is coming out now. So it is a focus, and I'm very grateful for that. So getting back to the original question, the book is available at Amazon, both UK and the US, and Barnes and Noble. I've been told it's also available in the indie books. What's it called? The Indie Bound or something like that. That is the independent bookstores. So it's available now in the independent bookstores, I've been told.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And if anybody reads it and would love to give me a review, I mean, because it was just published. So fantastic.
Wonderful. I just want to say, Sally, thank you so much for writing this book, because women, this is the time of the women, you know, and this is the time for women to take back their power and to be in their rightful place alongside the masculine. Yeah, this is alongside the divine masculine, and it's so important. And more women need to know about the mother, the great mother, you know. And it's so wonderful that you've written this, and it's a guide for women, you know, at this time, because this world needs us. This world needs the women to heal themselves, because I say this: if we heal the women, we heal the world, because we're the ones who bring up the next generation, the boys and the girls. So if you're a wounded woman and you're going to pass them wounds as we said, down into your generation, and you're going to just produce wounded children, who are not going to be beneficial for the earth. So heal yourself, do the work, buy your book. Yeah, it's just so good. Thank you, Sally, for being here.
You're welcome. And I also, my website is now created around the book, so you can find out a lot about my book through the website, which is embracechildspirit.org.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sally. Thank you for all of your divine wisdom and knowledge. And thank you for showing us about the Mother, the Holy Mother within us all. And thank you for being on the Great Awakening Show.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to have been here.